Hi, my name is Dick Jones, and I'd like to share with you some of the influences from my latest novel, Pipes. But first, I want to give you the synopsis of the story. Tetsuo the Iron Man meets a Clockwork Orange. The Brood, one of the many gangs of Pipe World, a planet of pipes, countless pipes, interwoven, growing, building off the pipes that came before, pipes that people grow on them, in them, and into, pipes that all who live long enough becoming part of Pipe World, adding to it, or not. Kawa, member of the Brood gang, would rather skateboard the world than become part of it. World that he must venture into the innermost depths of in order to obtain that thing he desires most. Pipes. Pipes of his very own. Pipes everyone but Kawa seems to have. Moto, leader of the Brood, with his Mohawk of flaming pipes. Gat, with his gun arm pipe. Pyro, with his flaming throat pipe. Dred, so cold with his cool fogging pipe that conceals most of his ominous visage. And more. Many more. So many people with so many pipes. Kawa must get pipes. Will get pipes. Whatever the cost. Enter a world of pipes in the sci-fi story full of gangs, violence, racing, music, sex, drugs, giant rats, and more. Join Kawa and the rest of the Brood gang as they make their adolescent way through the world. The pipes of the world. Pipe world. Pipes. So, considering the synopsis, let's begin with the two main influences for this story. Tetsuo the Iron Man and A Clockwork Orange. Start with A Clockwork Orange. This is my old copy of it from way back in the day. So this story is unique for a variety of reasons, but the main reason I would say is the language that Anthony Burgess used, a creation of different dialects, I believe, influenced by Russian and a few others. But if you've seen the movie, you know how it sounds, and if anything, the movie is dialed back of what you might find in the novel version. But with the novel, I recall my first time reading it back in my teens, reading a chapter, and the first chapter, and not even understanding or recalling what I'd read. I knew I read it, but I didn't really understand what was going on. Almost like when you read a paragraph when you're tired, and it's just in and out basically. So I remember rereading the first chapter, having to, because the language style that Anthony Burgess, the author, used, and something clicked with me, and then you can understand the story, the language, and everything that's going on. But this influenced me heavily in my writing of Pipes, in that I wanted to write it not in a copycat fashion, but in a distinct style of voice. That I went with a very brutal approach, I guess, a brutalist style of language that these youths and these gangs used, and I just used it throughout the story in all parts of it. But yeah, Anthony Burgess, A Clockwork Orange, heavily influenced it, and not just my language use and the style I wrote it in, but the story itself, in that this is excluding the mind control aspects of it, or mind control experiments performed on the character Alex and some others. But besides that, I wanted to take a character's journey into adulthood and do my own version of it. So sadly, the movie version that Stanley Kubrick made, he omitted some of the most important parts of the story that I think would have really helped counteract a lot of the fuss that occurred around the movie way back in the day, and that he got rid of the portions of Alex actually growing up, taking accountability, becoming a man, which the movie's devoid of. I understand it. The movie is more impactful probably to end on that kind of violent, sexual, lustful note and all that stuff, but he doesn't. There's no. Yeah, he doesn't grow up in the movie. In the book, he does. But that was a major influence, and I'd highly recommend it if you ever get a chance to. And if you find yourself not able to read or enjoy the book, I would recommend try reading the first chapter once or twice, and if you still don't like it, I guess don't bother. But try give it a few goes, and at some point it might click with you like it did with me back in my teens. Another main influence is Tetsuo the Iron Man, a just awesome sci-fi movie from the late 80s by Shinya Tsukamoto, and it's done in black and white. You know, it's brutal, it's heavy. Got a great industrial soundtrack by Shu Ishikawa, and but this is a film that I remember watching the first time a few years back, and I remember thinking at the end of the movie, I'm not sure how I feel about that. And anyone that's seen this movie, I'm sure, can understand why I felt that way. It's violent, it's impactful, it's a brutal watch, but your eyes stay glued to the scene, glued to the screen, and but there's some really cool elements into it, and had a big influence on me, specifically the soundtrack, which I'll get to later. Another influence, movie-wise, I couldn't leave out Ninja Turtles. You know, I wrote a story called Pipes, and obviously they're in the sewers and pipes sometimes, and they're a big influence on me as a kid, so I couldn't leave them out, specifically in regards to my number of years working construction, and specifically at waste treatment plants. So I've worked underground for extended periods of time. I've worked around pipes. I've been down in pipe galleries. I've been inside big pipes, some large enough you can walk down, and that's certainly a big influence on me in writing Pipes. You know, Pipes is a world of literal pipes. You know, just huge pipes, interwoven, all connected for the most part. But yeah, I couldn't leave out Ninja Turtles, just classics, specifically the first movie. Now moving on to musical influences, I'm gonna start with Blue Man Group, and I had to put them in, even if they weren't a main influence. They with their unique PVC creations, just unique musical pipes. You know, I'm not talking about voices; they don't talk, but they have some really neat PVC creations they use to make awesome music. Then they incorporate guitars, synths, everything else, and voices. But yeah, I definitely recommend them. They have a great impact visually, not just sound-wise, but you know, they have their glow-in-the-dark splatter paint, other cool stuff, and I'd highly recommend them. Next up, we're gonna turn back to Tetsuo the Iron Man, and just one of the best industrial albums ever is the soundtrack to this movie, and it's the two just go together. You can't have the soundtrack without the movie. The visuals, the black and white visuals, and the just awesome industrial soundtrack just go together so great. And the soundtrack is by Shu Ishikawa, who I believe died about 10 years ago. Only lived to be 50 or so, which is disappointing. He had a lot of great music left in him, but yeah, I highly recommend, even if you find the movie to be too intense visually. You know, there's body horror, gore, rape, murder. There's some brutal stuff in it, but even if that's not for you, you'll definitely want to check out the soundtrack if you are into music, and specifically industrial metal. You'll really dig it. Next up is Shu Ishikawa's, who did the soundtrack for Tetsuo the Iron Man. His side project, Der Eisenrost. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. It's, I believe, German or something, but their album Armored Weapon is pretty awesome. Specifically, their song Megatron had a lot of influence on me. It's just fast. For me, almost had a racing quality to it, which I listened to for some of the racing scenes. I quite enjoyed that. And next up, we got Frontline Assembly Some great industrial metal that goes from chill side projects and just chill stuff to more heavy stuff like Millennium. It's got just some great metal. The Millennium song's quite good, but my favorite of his is Nerve War, which I believe it's some of the early stuff he recorded back in like 87, maybe 88. But yeah, this is just a really chill but sometimes driving album that there's actually some great videos of him playing live, you know, with some guys back then, which I definitely recommend it. But Frontline Assembly is just great industrial metal. Anyone that's familiar with industrial metal, I'm sure, is well aware of them. But I'd highly recommend them, specifically for you know, his chill stuff. Paul Lieb, I believe his name is. Yeah, Paul Lieb. Now we're gonna move on to an excellent band I've been listening to for a very long time, and that is Godflesh. First, we're gonna start with their songs from this compilation. They was put out a long time ago, but the Grind Madness at the BBC, the Earache Peel Sessions, and on this here they have what I consider the best version of their song Pulp, which I listen to continuously while writing let's see, my scene, the fan zone scene in the story, which I think if you read that scene you'll understand, or it'll come across for you. Just that really awesome, brutal Pulp song, but in written version, I guess. But they've got a lot of great albums. You know, Street Cleaner is what they're most known for. But I do like their newer stuff too. A lot of bands don't sound as good when they get older, specifically their voices. But Justin Broderick, his voice getting gruffer, I think has really lent, you know, a new form of power to their music, and I really dig it. So check out Godflesh. They're awesome. And now, Gwar. They're not industrial metal or anything. Well, maybe they do a little bit of it, but they're just they got some excellent metal. I'm more into their metal stuff than their bluesy punk whatever. But my favorite album of theirs is Battle Maximus, and let's see, Violence Has Arrived, which has an awesome song, Immortal Corruptor, on there. But yeah, their old stuff's okay, but I like the newer stuff, well, semi-new, with David Brockie, who's sadly dead. And I think they need to find a frontman that captures his, I guess, madness a little bit. I'm not really into their newer stuff, or their, yeah, the voice specifically for the fat guy, I forgot his name, but yeah, check out Gwar, and yeah. Next up, we got Lead into Gold, Age of Reason. Just a great album from probably, let's see, what, 1990, okay. But it's probably most known for Faster Than Light. They got, you know, a music video that features various artists on there, including oh, there's a few, like I'm brain fart, the guy that does Nine Inch Nails. But yeah, highly recommend that. Giant on Earth's just a really heavy kind of droning thing. Snake Oil's a little chill, but it's a really great album. Had a big impact on me in my writing of Pipes, so definitely recommend it. Next up, we got Lords of Acid. Not a band I would normally listen to, but there's some scenes in Pipes that required, I guess, a bit of sensuality, sexuality in the music, and they do rock. They got some, you know, kind of synthy, just hard rock, and some pretty good tunes actually. And I never really heard of them until maybe a year or two ago. And like I said, it's not something I would normally seek out, but I was looking at it, diverse sorts of music in my writing the story, and I found them to make an impact. You know, having a hot, sexy front chick and just a good band backing her up. But they got some. They just look like a fun act. But I bet they'd be fun to see live. Next up, we got my favorite industrial album, Malformed Earthborn, Defiance of the Ugly by the Merely Repulsive. Now this is just kind of a one-off album. I can't remember exactly who. There's a few guys that made it. I'm trying to remember the one guy. He might have been a part of. I'm having a brain fart. Early grindcore. It'll come to me when this video's over, but yeah. But this is just an excellent album. My favorite song probably have to be Suicide Layer, but it's just an excellent industrial metal album that I just randomly came across on YouTube, and I picked up a CD. I don't know if you'd find a CD for a decent price these days, but this I probably listen to the most of all the songs I listen to while writing pipes. There's some great kind of droning music, some that it's more driving, and then some, you know, get some cool bass lines and different stuff. But I'd recommend this album. It's excellent. Getting heavier, we have Nails. Just really heavy, brutal metal bands, you know, with a grind, you know, it leans toward grindcore. And bunch of great music that doesn't outlive its welcome. You know, some of these albums I think are only 20 minutes long. A lot of songs are only 2 minutes long, but they hit hard and they don't overstay their welcome. And just an excellent band with yeah, they just kick ass. And staying heavy, we got Pig Destroyer, and they got a bunch of good stuff, but this is my favorite album of theirs. This one is Phantom Limb. Probably my favorite songs on them are Phantom Limb, Loathsome, and Fourth Degree Burns. And this is just a heavy, heavy album. It is, yeah, it's a heavy listen, but enjoyable if you're into heavy music. And definitely had an influence on me in my writing pipes, which there's some scenes in that are pretty brutal, and I listen to some pretty brutal music while writing them. And another band, less of an influence, but one song definitely had an impact on me is, I don't know if I'm saying this right, Schnick Act, and their album, this album Subhuman Minds, and it's got a really great music video for the song Fire, which the music video version of the song actually sounds way better than the album version, which is stupid, but yeah. I'll show a little clip of that here, but I'd recommend them. He's got another song, Rage, I believe it was called, but yeah, it's I think he just did 2 albums back in the early '90s, but definitely the song Fire is worth checking out. And last but not least, you have Swans, just a epically heavy band, known mostly for their early stuff, which is what influenced me in my writing pipes. Their album, you know, Filth and Cop, I think it was, yeah. But the early stuff is just really, really heavy, and not necessarily for the levels of distortion or anything like that. It's a very stripped down, brutal sound, and really just hard and impactful and loud, and I kind of understand why they didn't stick with that sound long term. I don't think you could mentally or physically do that for an extended period of time. But yeah, their early to mid '80s stuff is just really brutal and heavy, and you should definitely check it out if you're into heavy music, and it certainly had an impact on me in my writing of pipes. So yeah, those are some of the main influences in my creation of my book Pipes, which, as opposed to other books I've written, this I wrote pretty much entirely with music playing in the background, specifically certain songs playing over and over, and I suppose working myself into a slight trance state, you know, listen to certain music that, you know, helped me engage with the scene better, which lent to perhaps some of the more chaotic elements in the story. But yeah, overall, I'm quite proud of the story, and if you're into sci-fi and action and youth gang violence and shenanigans and a bit of comedy and violence, and there's even sports and racing and stuff there too. If you're into any of that, I highly recommend you check out my book, Pipes. Thank you.